On so many reserves across Canada, the walls of homes hide silent threats that jeopardize health and well-being. Inside the cramped spaces and behind walls, mold spores drift through the air and grow colonies. Damp basements, poorly vented rooms, and overcrowding create the perfect breeding ground for this invisible fungus, leaving families vulnerable to chronic coughs, asthma attacks, and infections. But mold isn't the only story. A legacy of post-war construction has left reserve homes insulated with asbestos-laden vermiculite. When the insulation is disturbed by renovations, leaks, or everyday wear and tear, it releases microscopic fibers that can lodge deep in the lungs. The result? Scarring, lung disease, and in severe cases, cancer, which has already claimed members of so many First Nations communities. I sat down with First Nations entrepreneur Kyle Davidson, owner of All About Abatement, to discuss these hazards and how First Nations can manage them.
Podcast ever. Should be exciting.
This is your first podcast ever?
Yeah.
You've never...
You're breaking my virginity podcast virginity here. But I usually do pretty good.
Okay. Start there.
Okay.
Welcome to the Hazardscape podcast, where we discuss Indigenous Emergency Management as our small contribution to enhancing Indigenous community public safety in our efforts to reconcile the relationship between the Crown and all nations.
All About Abatement is also Indigenous owned. I'm
Right.
a status Indian myself.
Yeah. Where from?
Okanagan.
We're from Okanagan.
Okanagan, yeah. I started in abatement 2006. It's one of the only things I know how to do. In 2018, I decided to open my own company and get All About Abatement off the ground, servicing most of Western Canada, Alberta, BC, Saskatchewan. We go up north to Yukon, Northwest Territories as well. We've done a job recently in Quebec. We're starting to move across the country. It's federally regulated or federally.
It's like a regulated. It's a very heavily regulated sector, like abatement.
It's registered across the country now, so we can kind of go where the work is, which is nice.
Oh, like you've got some type of like accreditation or certification that says you can work.
Yeah, just provincially, we can go wherever as long as we fit within the regulations of that province. But luckily for us, Alberta has some of the most stringent. If we take those procedures with us, we can follow in line with that province that we're working in.
Right.
It's nice.
Okay. So you said 2016?
2018.
2018. What were you doing before 2018?
Previously to 2018, I started my career in BC, working for, at that time, the largest abatement company in Canada. And I stayed there till 2015 and opened at that time a another abatement company for a large restoration company. And I did that for 3 years and eventually wanted to take the road myself and felt that I had a team that would follow me, that we could provide just as good or a better service on our own.
Yeah. Okay. So 2018, you get into abatement. So go into a little bit like what does abatement even mean?
Abatement is the safe removal of something hazardous.
Okay.
So our bread and butter is asbestos, but we also do mold, lead, handful of other things, mercury, PCBs.
Okay.
Most older buildings have something there for us to do.
Yeah. So anything hazardous, you're kind of coming in, setting up the environment to make it safe to remediate it or take it out and dispose of it.
Yeah. Our job starts with safe containment of the hazardous material and then removal of whatever's there with post clearances. And by the time we're done, the hazard is gone and rebuild contractors can start
doing their thing and putting all like kind of new regulated better building materials in there, stuff like that, getting rid of all the crap,
putting everything back the way it should have been.
So okay, that's interesting because like how there's a lot of toxic shit in our buildings and homes, right?
There is.
Like it's like
the list is ever evolving.
Yeah, I bet, eh?
Yeah.
And so what is it And I know, like, for this one, we kind of want to focus on First Nations because because I know you do work with First Nations.
We do, yeah.
Right. And I kind of like to focus on like on reserve kind of areas, especially related to emergency management. So particularly making sure that post disaster during a recovery, that homes are properly, dealt with, restored following fire, flood, things like that. Because a lot of the on reserve homes were kind of built, I think, like that massive building. There's like in the 80s, a huge move to build a lot of homes.
Yeah.
And I know like there's a lot of asbestos
There is.
in them, right?
Yeah. And all the way up until 1990.
Yeah.
For homes in that drywall joint compound all the way up to the 1990. So, Mark.
So but what is at the end of the day, because like, I mean, my home has asbestos. Mm-hmm. We were wanting to remodel like our kid's bedroom, and it's got the popcorn ceiling.
Yeah.
And I started scraping away.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it was that triggered me to like I know what it was. I was like, there's got to be a better way to do this because I was getting shit everywhere. Probably breathed in. Job. Yeah, probably breathed in something. Who knows? But started researching like, what's a better way to remove popcorn ceiling? And that led me down to like, did you get it tested for asbestos? And we did get it tested, and there is asbestos. So I was like, oh, frick.
There you go.
And I just left it alone. Like, we haven't touched it because that's kind of the advice, and we didn't encapsulate it or anything.
Yeah.
But, I remember like as a kid, like in our older house when I was growing up, there was a popcorn ceiling. And I would stick tacks and shit in it to like hang up a poster on the roof, whatever. That's not good.
No.
So that's the kind of stuff that you deal with so if a house is flooded and the popcorn ceiling gets a ton of moisture, or the drywall compound, like you're saying, like you remove all that stuff.
Yeah, there'd be a water mapping done by the restoration contractor. Whatever's been wet for too long or they identify for removal, our team isolates that area and removes it. It's funny you say that when you were a kid, you bumped into it. Now that I've been doing this for 20 years, I remember things too. Like I used to work at a mill on a cleanup crew when I was in high school, and they had us jackhammering out the inside of kilns. And I always wonder, did they get this stuff checked?
Yeah. No. Yeah. So, no, probably not.
Probably not. Yeah. Yeah.
Probably not. It's there's a lot of stuff. And I mean, so why I kind of like to, again, discuss this with First Nations is because they don't have a lot of very remote reserves because they can't get their houses insured. They don't have a lot of experience with I don't want to call it the insurance process, but it's kind of that process of if a house is damaged, it's kind of like they'll just bring in whatever carpenter is around or who they've got on the housing team and cut it out and fix it and get people back in. Yeah. But they're not doing the work of testing.
No.
Right?
A real educational gap. Even around these big cities, we see and hear about it or get involved in a cleanup that nobody did the proper checks before the project began, and now there's a contaminated building that needs cleaned, and that just adds costs and bad publicity to these buildings, especially if it's a public building or a school and maintenance didn't do their due diligence. It can be nasty.
Yeah.
It can be nasty.
Yeah. And I'm just going to make sure. I want to do one thing. I should have this on. I just want to make sure that the audio's coming through. Okay. Test. Okay. So it's good. Let's just kind of like paint a scenario here, right? So let's say a First Nation has a localized flood event. Yeah. And let's just say, for example, 20 houses get flooded. Mm-hmm. And, up to let's put it in the summertime. So it's like 30 degrees out. Yeah. 10 houses are flooded. Half of them have some sort of finishing to the basement. The other ones don't. Mm-hmm. And let's just say we get like 2 to 3 feet of water, mixture of sewer backup and some overland flooding that came through the basement windows because they don't have window wells. Yep. Or the windows were open. Mm-hmm. So you've got a mixture of sewer backup and that. And, the homeowner was evacuated for like in total, 3 weeks, right, in 30-degree weather.
Yeah.
What would be kind of your like immediate concerns?
Mold, for
Mold.
sure.
Okay.
Yeah, when we first go in, we've been in lots of environments like that that have had bad, catastrophic like fire or water events, and buildings have been left for weeks or months unattended, and the mold is inches thick, right? So
Yeah.
that's your first concern is you do have to be concerned about the asbestos portion and all that as well.
Yeah.
But the immediate hazard in a building like that is the mold. The mold colonies. I've taken some amazing photos over the years of the colors that they get and how they look when they're
Oh, yeah.
when they're left alone.
Yeah.
It's actually pretty cool, but it's also very dangerous. Like you
Yeah.
don't want to walk in and disturb mold colonies this size and go in without your proper PPE and just try to self-perform anything after a loss of that severity.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. That's an interesting one. So when you say disturb a mold colony, like what exactly, kind of take us through that?
Just your day-to-day life can really disturb an active mold growth.
Yeah.
You have mold growing around your
You can look if you want.
and just in other parts around your house that you walk past all the time that you don't really think about. You throw your towel against, and any even air movement can blow spores off of this mold growth. And once it's airborne, all it needs to do is land in another suitable place for mold growth, and you have twice the problems you originally started with. And if you're a person who's has issues with your respiratory system, or you're generally unwell, or you have older people or kids in the house, you're also risking people's health as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, so in that, going back to that scenario, because there's a high likelihood that a lot of those homes had pre-existing mold issues.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is true, but this is what I was told by some Dene people up in like Northwest Territories, Fort Smith area.
Yeah.
Is because they do like a lot of cooking at home where they boil a lot of their food or the meat. That creates like a very humid environment. And that's why they've got some mold issues, because just culturally, that's how they cook.
Yeah.
And then 2, a lot of the houses that were built were not built well in terms of ventilation.
Yeah.
And so that combination of things causes a lot of humidity and mold to grow.
It's true.
Then when you throw, even like a couple feet of water in a basement in a house that's at like sitting around 25, 30 degrees over the summer for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
That can, like, how much mold growth might you see in that like 2-week period? Would you see a lot?
Yeah. Like
You
I've
would,
seen, for example, like after these Fort McMurray wildfires years ago, like it was the fire that, that obviously evacuated the town. But there was flooding soon after, right, with a bunch of power down, some pumps not working.
Yeah.
So water turned into a quick problem, like a real problem. And good to go?
Yeah. Keep on.
And we were, even places that didn't get 2 or 3 feet of water in the basement, these places were completely collapsed in a month. Like cabinetry couldn't stay together anymore. The mold was completely to the ceiling. Like it's an inch thick on the walls.
Wow.
It's unbelievable. Like you walk into a month after a water loss in, like you're saying, with perfect temperatures, like extreme heats, lots of water, mold growth happening. It really takes off. It takes off fast. Like it's covering the couches with an inch thick. The wood is completely deteriorating. The walls are not standing up. They're caving in like something hit them, but it's just everything's falling down.
Wow.
So it really takes off fast. The mold really breaks down rapidly.
Yeah. So, okay. So even in that scenario where there's just been a little bit of water and things like that, like that's like, and I would call that scenario that I just went through normal in the sense of that kind of thing. Like I remember being in like High River where houses were flooded like half, like to the main floor from the basement, and they sat like that for a month.
Yeah.
And It's a really quick story.
Yeah.
If it's okay.
Yeah.
So the what happened in High River. So when I was manager for the disaster recovery program for Alberta, they had a firm that was providing contracted services to do all the damage assessment and all this. And it literally said in the government policy at the time that pre-existing mold would not be covered under the financial assistance for abatement in a big flood. And that mold, essentially the idea at the time, this is only in 2013, that mold wasn't a risk, right? Enough of a risk to warrant funding to have it removed. And I mean, me being kind of like a new manager in the area at that time, I was kind of like that doesn't jive with me. And there was always this debate with the policyholders about should it be eligible or not.
Yeah.
But then the town of High River did the smartest thing ever. They invited Mike Holmes to come and talk at the I think it was at the rodeo. It's a rodeo stadium. And the first 5 sentences out of his mouth was, do not go back into your homes. They are going to be unsafe, riddled with mold. And I was standing off to the side listening to this, and I just made a phone call to them. My boss at the government said at the time, and I said, mold is now eligible.
Wow.
We have to make it eligible, because the government was going to do whatever they could to try and fiddle around that cost.
Yeah.
And as soon as Mike Holmes said that, and 6,000, whatever, how many was there? Well, probably not 6,000, but 1,000. There was a lot of people there.
Yeah.
Heard that there was no way it was going to go down. So I think, it's super important that people understand the severity of the risk of mold.
Yeah, it's really overlooked. In our industry, everybody cares about asbestos, right?
Yeah.
You want to take care of asbestos properly, but mold delivers, some bad hazards as well. And but there are some jurisdictions that take it more seriously than others. There's a generic document for mold remediation in Canada called Best Practices Mold at the Work Site. And that pretty much governs mold throughout Canada. Probably most remediation contractors are familiar with this document. But in BC now, and it's funny you say around 2013, but there's a document now that you need, regardless of where you're working, called a Notice of Project for Asbestos Removal.
Oh, yeah.
And in BC, you need so it's an NOPA for asbestos, and it's an NOPM for mold. So they're also tracking mold removal.
Yeah.
So, and that's great, because we don't need to tell in Alberta anybody what we're doing or how we're doing it when it comes to mold. It's just being assumed it's being handled correctly, right?
Yeah.
And that your professional is doing his job. But in BC, they're making it a WCB coverable item, right?
Okay.
That the officers work safe that's inspecting these sites is also being told when there's just mold on the work site, which is kind of neat, because I don't know of another jurisdiction in Canada that does that.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I was in BC over the summer helping a friend dispose of a lot of stuff from their parents' house, because they were the parents, one had passed away and the other one was aging and can't live there anymore. And we took a bunch of stuff to the dump. It was kind of like an eco center in Edmonton here, but it was in BC. And the rules there around asbestos and stuff like that, very different than my experience here in Alberta. I can't remember what the signage was, but it was something along the lines of all drywall, this type of material had to be reported at the gate, and they kind of did a bit of an interview to find out if it had been tested, and if you don't have the test results, you can't leave it.
Yeah.
Whereas in Edmonton here, I could take drywall to the eco station and drop it off right away. But it's stricter there.
Yeah, we're like the Wild West over here. All the drywall that's abated with asbestos in it in BC actually has to come back here to Alberta, or that's how it was when I was there. They
Really?
wouldn't take it.
Oh, really?
Take it there at all. It was shipped back here to Alberta.
Well, okay. I could see that because this was on Vancouver Island, so it's where on that island is there space to manage all of this, right?
Yeah.
I could see Alberta being a base for that because we've got a lot of space. But
yeah,
that's interesting. So okay, so that's mold, which is prevalent through First Nations. We know that it's a big issue, and if it doesn't get taken care of, evacuations. What is it? Here's the thing. Like, let's just say a home gets evacuated for a month, and it's got some mold issues already, and it's summertime, and sure, you would think, okay, no one's in the house. There isn't really anything going on. What, having someone out of the house that long, what does that like could that make things worse? Like,
I would think so. You always hear that you leave your house empty and kind of nobody in it, and it kind of deteriorates over time. I think that, having nobody in the home with an active mold problem would accentuate that problem. So just as, the little bit of mindless upkeep that you actually give the mold, like some people trying to spray mold or bleach on the mold, or just trying to do little home remedies, all that would stop. So it would be able to thrive. And I'm not exactly sure, but seems to me like it would help it.
Yeah, it always kind of like goes through my head, right? Because you've got people that evacuate for like a month out of their house due to wildfire. And
then they're not covered for pre-existing mold. Who knows what was there and what's not.
Exactly. Yeah. And as people get more educated with evacuation procedures, they're not, like they are closing the windows. They are like sealing up the house.
Yeah.
And so now you've just got this fairly stagnant, heated environment over the summer.
Yeah.
And if there is a rainfall and the humidity comes up, like I would just think not having the bathroom fans running
or
a little bit.
Generic HVAC's usually off in emergency situations too,
yeah.
Right? So, and that's no air filtration anymore. The mold is not being picked up.
Yeah.
At any interval.
Yeah. So I think, this is like, it's a big issue. And again, where I look at it coming at it from like post-disaster on reserve, I know, because it's like this in a lot of nations, like the first priority is just to get people home. And, I've put this out there. I won't mention the name, but there is an organization that like provides cleaning kits for after evacuation for after floods and wildfires.
Yeah.
And I know that it gives people like a false sense of security.
Yeah. We've heard of these over the years as well.
Yeah. In terms of like, they're not safe. They're not good. Right. Yeah. And I think for me, educating First Nations on the fact that one, do not accept these cleaning kits, thinking that that's going to fix your problem, and don't accept them because, you can get organizations like Indigenous Services Canada saying, well, did you accept these cleaning kits? Those were provided. We've provided funding to this organization to purchase them. They've given you these cleaning kits. So why are you coming to us for money for restoration?
Yeah.
And for me, the worry is always that's what's going to happen. That's what happens a lot of times.
Yeah. We've heard of these things, and they're just the old saying, lipstick on a pig. Like they're making, a situation kind of you could get away with maybe passing, right? Like in a sense, like the problems kind of gone or hidden, but like mold is there from something. There's an underlying cause, right? These kits don't fix the problem behind your wall, right? They don't stop a leaking pipe, right? Like a proper remediation of removal of that drywall to see what's behind, like what's going on with the envelope of this structure, right? Why is the mold here? Or is there no bathroom fan installed, right? Or is there something that's creating this climate inside of your home that mold is able to thrive, right? They're just making the air clean. Like I've heard of fogging kits that fog the air so you could run an air test and pass. So what, right? Like the mold came from somewhere. It's not growing in the air. It's growing on something in the house. Yeah. Right. So it's kind of null and void. Like, if you need to pass a test, but why, right? You're not there to just pass one test. You're there to make sure the problem's not there tomorrow.
Yeah. What about lead? That's an interesting one. Like, where do you find lead in a house?
Yeah.
These days?
So lead lead is around, usually you hear about it in older lead paints,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
There's sheeting products for roofing vents, stuff like that. But usually when we run into it, it's a lead painted siding or lead paint on a interior wall of really old homes, right? But lead is pretty underlooked, I'll call it, in Alberta. And again, in BC, it's much better regulated. So they actually make sure that we know what we're doing
Right.
when you go do it. It's nice. I like to send my Alberta crew over to BC sometimes to see how you should do stuff properly because there's somebody over your shoulder watching.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't come up a lot in Alberta, but it is a serious problem. Mold is pretty much regulated for what's an acceptable mold limit across Canada, except for a few outlying jurisdictions still allow for quite a bit to be inside of lead paint and stuff, for example. But it's I think lead is due to get more stringent regulation in Alberta and beyond.
Okay.
Well,
So what if I'm like as a homeowner, when like what conditions of my home should I be like year it was built? Like what's some of the is there any kind of common
for most of the homes that get a good thorough hazard assessment report done, hazardous material report generated, are pre 1990 homes, like 1991. And
you guys
prior,
do you do those assessments?
yeah, we do.
Guys,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, we
Okay.
do. There's a quite a few organizations around that can bulk sample, air test. We're one of those. But it's usually the spur point is around 1990, where if there's reno work planned or demolition work planned, that those reports are required.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Required by like the municipality, probably through their permitting.
Yep. You can't get a demo permit without your bulk, hazardous material bulk report, right? Showing that you have tested for those parameters.
Okay.
For lead, for asbestos, for if there's PCB ballasts, they can be really thorough. And the more thorough they are, the better job you're going to do. You're not going to accidentally dispose of something in a landfill that's not ready for it, prepared. Right?
What's a PCB ballast?
So it's like a older light, like your fluorescent lights.
Oh, okay.
That black ballast that's in behind, that's powering the.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So even those, they're really easy to identify. It says no PCBs on them if there's none. So those don't really need any testing. It's a quick read.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you do hazardous material assessments for residential homes.
Yes.
And so it's basically so that's good to know, because if I'm looking like working with a First Nation, that's something I would make part of my community risk assessment.
Yeah.
Would be every house gets a hazardous materials assessment done for each one.
Yeah.
As a way to, one, prioritize within the housing department what needs attention.
Yeah.
And then two, if there is a disaster and post-recovery,
then you have an inventory.
Then we've got an inventory pre-done of the hazards.
And for example, like this isn't something that would shock the governments to do, because in Saskatchewan, for one, if you have a public accessible building, you must have an inventory done of your asbestos containing materials. And every room of some of these bigger buildings has to have, behind the door, there's like a tag, right? Yeah. It says the walls, the ceilings, the floors. There's a handful of different criterias, and they says if they have asbestos in them or not. So if there's emergency situations, they know, like these are already tested. It's a very awesome system.
Yeah.
I did a job at University of Saskatchewan in Saskatoon. That's the first time I saw that, and I was like, this should be everywhere.
Absolutely.
You just know it's already done. So
yeah,
pretty neat.
Okay, that's good. Because I'm always kind of looking for those little, I'll call them add-ons to the larger risk assessment, because a lot of communities, they're very, okay, no brainer, get a flood assessment, get a wildfire risk assessment, get even like a egress assessment, right? Yeah. They're looking at all these natural hazards. And I think a lot of the times, like the hazardous materials assessment even I would say on reserve around a lot of the buildings, like looking for tipped over tanks of fuel or oil, like diesel, like,
Yeah,
I mean, that, I don't know if that's in your
that's a
scope.
little out of our scope.
That's a lot of out of your
The,
scope.
Yeah, like that phase 3 soil testing and stuff like that. That'd be different companies.
Yeah, but as far as the houses go and the nation buildings,
Yeah.
like would you also include like say a public works building as a commercial one, or is that within a different scope?
No, we do. Like we have a wide array of clients ourselves. We're one of the only abatement companies in Alberta that actually employ hygienists. So a lot of people think you can't, right?
Yeah.
But it's a you can. Like there's strict codes to follow, right? We can't just because we employ hygienists do whatever we want. Like the same high standards must be kept.
Yeah.
So we don't always use our own hygienists on every job, but we do have them in house.
Okay, that's good to know.
And we do public works. We work actually with the federal government directly as well for some airport stuff. And a wide variety.
Yeah. Okay. So that's kind of, we talked about touched a little bit on asbestos, mold, lead. Like what other kind of areas are you concerned with in houses?
We also service the restoration market. Is probably our largest market, working with restoration companies.
Right.
So we don't do restorations ourselves, but we do supply like the backbone labor into a lot of the companies' crews around town, which is very fortunate to do so. And we cross train our abatement employees with IICRC training so that we just have a higher quality labor pool ready for these companies that have catastrophic losses happen.
Yeah.
And they need a higher caliber skilled labor, still general labor, but guys that I've had for years and have been around restoration type projects for a decade or more.
Okay. So yeah, you kind of bring in that it's that abatement expertise, and probably it's the equipment, specialized equipment setup.
We don't hold any restoration equipment ourselves, but the abatement guys are, they're very good at keeping things clean, because when you've done an asbestos abatement, it must be perfectly clean for all the post sampling. So that's very handy for these guys on fire claims, water claims and stuff, that also everything needs to be kept really clean and very isolated, because containments are still important. Lots of times if it's clean or dirty, right, for stopping cross-contamination of soot and stuff and, smoke, odors, things like that as well.
Yeah, that's a big thing I learned about, like with some of these wildfire restorations, was just, it's not even so much, well, it is. Like if you have fire smoke smell in your house, it's because it's contaminated. Mm-hmm. It's not just, it's just not it is leftover particles, but it's still considered contaminated to a level, right?
On your work boots, you go stomping through one really bad fire claim, boots aren't clean, and you head over to somebody's house that's not too bad and don't take off your boots and walk them in. You could think that maybe they have smoke damage as well, but it's your boots that you're wearing around, right? Something like that. So cross-contamination is important for abatement, but it's also important for those kind of applications as well.
Yeah, I see that a lot. Like, I don't know what kind of training they do with wildfire, like on reserve and structural, but I know, like, because the fire services on reserve, a lot of them are not very sophisticated. Yeah, firefighters will just chuck all their gear in the back of their truck, right, or their trunk of their car, and that's where it sits until the next one.
Yeah.
Or they'll even just wear it home and drop it all off at the front entrance, and it's like those things are so contaminated, especially if it's a house fire.
Yeah, if they went and knocked a door in or hit a wall and it had asbestos or something on it, then they go drop that suit off at home. That's a cross contamination of where their wife and kids are.
Yeah. Essentially. Yeah, it and from my view, like having dealt with Indigenous Services Canada on this kind of stuff and the federal government for a very long, like it'll be going on 16 years now. Even at the provincial government level, there is kind of like zero awareness within the emergency management side of these organizations. Like
Yeah.
Indigenous Services Canada staff are not going to nations and saying, hey, you've been evacuated for a month. We need to do a hazardous material assessment on your home before you re-enter.
Yeah.
They're even working with like First Nations Inuit Health Branch people. Those health people aren't even asking
Yeah.
for that kind of data.
Yeah. It's crazy.
And I'm just like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Right? It just boggles my mind that the government, I'm trying to think if it's like, I don't know if it's like incompetence or cluelessness,
Yeah.
if they're the same thing, but they're just not
Focused on different things.
Yeah, it's crazy. Because I've seen the government, Indigenous Services Canada, be totally fine with sending families back to homes where the entire all living room walls are covered in mold.
That's terrible.
Like, what in the hell? And then you have, and I worked with some of these people that have lived in those environments, on reserve, and it's like, they come to work and they're like, oh, I'm sick again. Or I got to go home early because I have a headache. And I know it's not because they're sick from a cold. They're living in a moldy environment.
For sure.
And their kids are always sick and their kids' noses are always running and they're always feeling like shit and they're always tired.
Yeah.
That, I think, that is the mold.
That's that constant exposure to the mold's mycotoxins.
Yeah. Like, I've seen, like, I know you have, I've seen horrific photos of homes that are just engulfed by mold.
Yeah.
And it's still to the point where, I'll talk to families and they're like, well, it's that or we live outside in a tent, and they prefer to go back to the home.
Yeah.
And they still complain of illness, and they wonder why the health centers and the nursing stations always have people, like, why they're always busy with people being sick.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like, nobody talks about it. Like, nobody, like, there's nothing done by the government to investigate these things.
Yeah, it's kind of wild.
Yeah, it's like, it's at the point now where it's like, I don't think it's any different than any other type of humanitarian crisis that we would hear about in like another continent.
Nope.
Right?
And our events have been fairly common. Every year there's been some fairly bad, catastrophic things happening across Canada.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's a serious issue that how they're dealing with these losses in real time.
Yeah, and like, or not even dealing with it. Like, it's like pulling teeth.
By.
Yeah, it's like pulling teeth to get the funding to remediate and abate these homes.
Imagine.
Yeah, and it is a big issue. And I think too, like, and these are First Nations, like even non-Indigenous, like High River, Calgary, like it was a huge fight to get the insurance companies involved with the claims in High River and Calgary because they didn't want to take on the losses.
Yeah.
But the provincial government, to their credit, like basically, I think, however they did it, strong-armed or something, had some meetings, at least got the insurance companies to take on anything that was above the main floor. So the government dealt with everything at the basement level to main floor. Insurance went above that.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And it was, it was a little hairy there because insurance companies were basically not even sending in adjusters.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it's months till, these things happen. We think we're moving relatively quick after these cats happen, and it's like 3 months down the road and we have our phone ringing. Are we ready to go?
Yeah. Yeah. So you said you did a job in Quebec, like you're able to kind of like go anywhere?
Yeah. Just with the way the company's federally regulated.
Yeah.
So registered, we get to enjoy that courtesy of moving across the country freely.
Yeah.
We have obviously our lawyers and accountants make sure to keep us compliant wherever we work.
Yeah.
But it's kind of a neat way to operate. It's fairly new to All About Abatement to have that type of registration done.
Yeah.
We did it after some of the large fire losses a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Right. Just because they were in provinces that we weren't, and just to be able to go if the phone does call. So keep it registered like that.
Right.
The Quebec one was a call to work at a port, which was kind of neat for a mold
Oh, yeah.
as well. So
Okay.
working at a port and water and mold, and so that was neat.
Seawater.
Yeah,
Seawater mold.
supporting another company that does emergency type work.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what would kind of like, for you in this industry at this point, like what are you thinking like the next decade is going to look like in terms of just trying to like create healthier communities? Like, is it just going to be kind of like going down the same path, clean up as much as possible?
I've seen a lot of missions with positive missions towards these reserves, like Mr. Knight, Stan Knight, with the inspector in a box, which is really neat, kind of pushing awareness of mold in the home and a handful of other things.
Yeah.
And some other companies as well. Like, I think it's getting talked about more, especially mold. Everybody always tells me, well, aren't you worried that asbestos is going to be gone in the next 10 years? And then 10 years goes by and I'm still removing more asbestos than I did the past 10 years. So not too worried about that. It's kind of been the same for a while.
Yeah.
But there's kind of new players showing up where occupational health and safety divisions are checking for airborne silica and silica in general in materials.
Okay.
So silica and asbestos are relatively similar.
What is silica coming from? Like, what is
silica? Is just in like the other types of building materials, like like with concretes and aggregates and like the other stuff we're not really checking for in drywall, right? So so it's relatively still new to us, but we have had officers show up on a just interior demo site. There wasn't abatement there, to do silica testing in the air.
Really?
To see if we needed to implement more like wetting procedures and stuff like that to keep the dust out of the air. So
right.
I just have a funny feeling that might be next on the regulatory kind of list, is silica.
Okay, so that's one to kind of watch out for.
Yeah.
In terms of that movement. And like what kind of advice would you give? Like, let's just say I'm like a housing manager on a reserve. Like, if they called you up and said, okay, Kyle, I heard you on this podcast. We've not done anything in our community to deal with any sort of hazardous material around the houses and nation buildings.
Yeah.
Where would you start with them? Like the assessment piece?
Yeah, I would just ask them, how's their nation doing with complaints on mold? That'd be the best starting point, because that would kind of identify maybe gaps in building practices and maintenance practices as well.
Yeah.
Right. So if they're struggling with mold in their homes, and lots of them are, maybe they have same style roof that's in, or same guy did their ducting to their bathroom fans, didn't vent them outside, and they're all vented into the attic, right? I think it's typically a good starting point, and those, just a simple, cheap air test inside these homes can give a quick blink of time of, is there something strange happening, right? In comparison to some controlled outdoor samples, is there elevated mold inside of these homes? I hear about outrageous costing that nations get charged for these kind of tests and cleans and stuff. And this is a really inexpensive thing to run. These cassettes are cheap. It's the time of one guy to set up some pumps, walk around, and that would give these housing managers a really good snapshot of how is their nation's indoor air quality really doing.
Would you do, so let's say, because this is what we did. So let's say you've got like 1,000 houses on reserve. That's pretty big. Like, let's just go with 500. You got 500 homes. Yep. Would you would want to test every single home, or would you do a sample and then kind of see what that draws? And then,
the wait times for like the lab analysis portion of the sample is pretty quick turnaround.
Yeah.
You could start doing these samples, but as you're going every day, sending these off to a lab, and you'd have an ongoing story as you went. Like,
right. Okay.
Data, you'd know it the next day or the next couple days, depending on how remote your nation is.
Yeah.
So I think it'd if you every single house you went in has a problem, you wouldn't need to do every single house.
Yeah.
Or if you have all the same street was all built at the same time, they've all been really good. Maybe you'll stop sampling that street and
Yeah.
not getting the complaints and jump over to an older neighborhood or another neighborhood that's catching more complaints.
Yeah.
Right. So I think those big, multi-residential, like lots of hundreds of homes are different than every other job we do there. They
Yeah.
kind of are a personal experience.
Yeah.
Right.
I know that if you went, just from my experience, I know if you went on reserve and there was like 100 houses and you did 50,
Mm-hmm.
if the other 50 didn't get their house done, it wouldn't
about
go
me?
over. Yeah, it would be about where's my report.
Yeah.
So you'd have, but I do
Yeah.
think in that case, having them all done for that record would be extremely valuable.
Yeah, I think so too.
And that's something you can store in kind of like your asset management system. And then if there is something wrong, you could even tell like carpenters and plumbers, like, okay, this is the damage, this is what the house was rated at or whatever. Maybe it's not a great idea to go in there and start playing around with this. Let's call someone with some PPE, personal protective equipment, stuff like that.
Yep.
Or have it on site for them to put on. Because I would imagine a lot of plumbers and carpenters go into a home just with nothing other than their work clothes on.
For sure. And for these, everybody's worried about, well, they don't want to go in and cause damage, and do invasive kind of testing. And there's so many ways to do non-invasive testing nowadays, like with these FLIR cameras and stuff like that can see through walls when we can't, and pick up cold spots and wet spots. And I think there's so much technology nowadays that isn't being used that they could use on reserve themselves, have FLIR training programs for their own inspectors, and make it a quarterly walk around of inspecting these homes themselves. That would identify half these problems that we're seeing through these walls. So, and that's a couple $1,000 expense on some FLIR cameras and a training to show them how to use them.
Yeah, and I often wonder too, like for some families or homeowners, kind of what is there any shame that exists around this, which creates like a barrier for them wanting to have the house tested? Like, I think it's good for people to know that, if your house has mold, it has nothing to do with the, how you're maintaining the home.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you said before, there's probably some unseen issue that's going on that you can't necessarily maintain because you can't access it or can't see it or don't have the process to uncover it.
Yeah.
And, like for me, if there's one message I could tell people, it's like, if you have mold or anything like this in your home, like, you've got to report it to your nation. But if the nation isn't doing anything, then, where can those people go to kind of deal with it on their own? Yeah. I don't know what options they have. It's kind of a tricky situation, but there shouldn't be any shame around speaking up about these things.
Yeah. And lots of people don't like people coming into their homes and seeing something unrelated that they have shame or they're embarrassed about, but the health of their family is more important.
Yeah. So, like, there's no judgment.
No. We've been in homes that they're less than ideal, you can say, but there's no judgment here. We're there to help get you guys back to a normal running day.
Yeah. So what have is there anything we haven't talked or brought up that you think is important for people to kind of know about this process?
I think this was pretty diverse chat.
Yeah.
Managed to pull off here. But I just think, like you said that, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? Like, if you have a problem and you're not talking about it, nobody knows you have a problem.
Yeah.
Right, inside these homes. Like, everybody's like, well, I saw this video on YouTube and I'll go get some Lysol and I'll spray it on the wall and I'll kill this mold myself, right? And then you don't see this on the front side of the drywall, but in the meantime, it's taken off 4 feet up or straight up into your ceiling now, and it's behind these walls. The front side of your drywall is painted. It's harder for mold to travel, but on the backside, it's paper. If it's wet and got a good, it's dark, right? It could be humid depending on your own ventilation, but it can travel. You spray the front with bleach, who cares? The mold is not just on the front. It usually comes from something on the back, and it's still moving just fine on the backside.
Yeah. Wow.
So you can't see that without doing some invasive tests, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. I like what you said about that is, yeah, it doesn't travel where you can see it, but if it is getting to the point where you can see it, it's probably really bad in behind.
Really bad. Usually you can see some damage at the bottom of these walls by baseboards and stuff. Then we cut that wall 2 feet, and it's actually a foot high or more, and traveling just fine, well beyond what you saw on the painted side.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
It
that's
really
incredible.
moves. So
Yeah. Where can people, like, what is your website?
ours is nice and easy. It's all-about.ca. But we're really active on LinkedIn. If you follow All About Abatement on LinkedIn, it's probably our best one. We're trying to catch up on the social media storm that's life nowadays.
It is, yeah.
But
you're on LinkedIn, you got website.
Yeah.
They can get a hold of you, your team. You're based out of Edmonton.
Yeah, based out of Edmonton. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll go do some video around your shop and get some B-roll and stuff and add to this.
That'd be awesome. And I'll get that video from Skyline.
Yeah, we'll do some drone. And just reach out if you're a housing manager listening on reserve, or even a capital projects person or infrastructure, health director, education director that is curious about the state of your airspace within your structures. Yeah, reach out to Kyle and his team, and
you can send an email to info@all-about.ca. Need to hyphen between all-about.ca.
Yeah,
and we'll get somebody likely smarter than me to reach out back to you and help you with your problem.
Yeah, awesome, man. Well, thanks for providing some education to us, and we'll stay. We're gonna do this again, so that's awesome. All right, thank you, sir.
Thanks, Brad.
Thanks for joining us at Hazardscape. You can subscribe to our YouTube and find our ad-free training videos by becoming a supporter on Patreon with a network of other Indigenous peoples looking to make their communities safer. And remember, know your Hazardscape and be prepared.